Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gore Call in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today, Yaron Conforti, CEO of and co-founder of Novamind, trades on the CSE under the stock symbol NM. For our friends in the US, NVMDF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under HN2. For those of you new to the story, because you saw the big headline today, to understand Novamind, you first understand this. Psychedelics are going to go through a parabolic, paradigm-shifting growth phase the next 5 years. We've seen the estimates, tens of billions of dollars, and that's because of their ability to treat anxiety, depression, and other maladies. Novamind is one of America's leading providers of psychedelic medicine, with a growing network of psychiatry clinics, research sites, and therapeutic retreats that specialize in psychedelic medicine. More than just lip service, here are the numbers. Q3 revenues, $1.85 million, up 43% quarter over quarter. 5 clinics already opening. The 6th one is launching. That's the press release that we're going to be talking about today. 2 more clinics coming this year. Salt Lake City in October, Park City in November. In 2020, those 5 clinics facilitated over 20,000 visits. That was 100% year-over-year growth. They're forecasted to increase to 65,000 visits in 2021. That's up 225%. They're hitting out of the ballpark. They've even got biotech partnerships with the likes of Merck and Johnson & Johnson. Yaron, welcome back. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. Good to be back, George.
Today's press release, Novamind opens 6th clinic and expands mental health services in high-need region. Before we get into the details, when you open a 6th clinic, that means success. You're executing. How happy are you guys with the execution phase of the business?
Thanks, George. The 6th clinic is a significant milestone for us. We announced earlier in the year that we were going to expand from 4 to 8 clinics, so double our clinic footprint. And from an execution perspective, our model works really well. You referenced our last quarter's financials. We've got waiting times at all the existing clinics, and the new clinics are being launched now to satisfy the growing demand that we've seen now for a couple of years.
What should because when you see rollouts happening this way, going from 4 to 8, you're clearly seeing opportunity. What should investors understand about the opportunity? Let's talk about first the opportunity and what you're seeing in Utah, because that's where you guys are focused now, and maybe how big. What should an investor understand about how big this opportunity is going to be, nationwide over the next 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're a good barometer for people. It's a good question because in terms of full spectrum psychiatry clinics that specialize in psychedelic medicine, there's not many of them. So because we do just that is we offer that spectrum of psychiatry services with the specialties in psychedelic medicine, we can actually see the shifts in demand for certain offerings. So whereas some patients or clients might have been traditionally, benefiting from things like cognitive behavioral therapy or prescription management in certain cases, some of those patients or new patients may be shifting towards ketamine-assisted psychotherapy or Spravato, or in fact TMS, the alternative medical health modalities, as we call them. So we're seeing it show up in the data in terms of the type of treatments and how our revenues are segmenting. Broadly speaking, that opportunity we see across the US. So that is that the experience we're having with our soon-to-be 8 clinics in Utah is very, very similar, if not identical, to the experience across the US. And that is, you have a significant amount of demand for these innovative mental health services. And from an accessibility perspective, it's not common to find places that both specialize in these services and have the models like ours that operate at scale and can serve a lot of patients or clients at a certain standard and quality of care. So in terms of our growth in Utah, having 8 clinics, having a call center as well that we opened there, that was always our plan going into the end of 2021. Getting that test bed working very well at scale. And you mentioned that we've guided for an anticipated 65,000 visits to our clinics this year. So using that model, which is a very successful model operationally and financially, we are getting set to expand into the US. And we've got some priorities there. I've mentioned before to investors broadly that growth for us is a mix of M&A and organic growth.
Right.
So we've got in terms of strategies that are being executed and are underway in both respects, both M&A and organic, meaning opening our own locations in other states, and it really replicates that successful model that we've been building in Utah. Are
there other states that you're going to be targeting, or is it going to be more driven by M&A opportunities? So, for example, are you looking to target California next, or if there's an opportunity to buy GeorgeCom psychedelics clinics in Colorado, you'll go ahead and do the M&A? Where does the priority lie?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, insofar as that we look for like-minded M&A partners, people that operate clinics similar to ours, have similar views in terms of the standard of care and the quality of care that we provide. And if those like-minded partners exist in certain states, we'll pursue those states. It so happens that some of those partners that we're in discussions with are in existing states that we prioritize, states like Colorado, Oregon as well. These are states that, of course, are very close to our geographic footprint in Utah. And also in the case of Portland, as an example, most of your audience may be familiar with Bill 109, where we'd expect that Portland will be the first state where psilocybin is legalized in clinical use. So these are our priority locations for us. But again, from a clinic perspective, it's pretty clear at this point that our model of psychiatry clinics will work anywhere in the United States.
In order to grow from 20,000 clinic visits in 2020 to your forecast of 65,000 clinics this year, 2021, it obviously means you're having an impact on patients. And I'm sure a lot of that growth is coming from great marketing, but I'm assuming a lot of that's also coming from referrals, where people are. What's the response from patients and the success what kind of anecdotal evidence can you give us about the success you're having treating George and Mary and all your patients?
I'm happy to. I think anecdotal is the right word. To be clear, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I don't treat the people we help. But of course, I collaborate really closely with our CMO and our CSO and the people that are actively treating our clients. It's really significant. In many cases, people are being introduced to therapies that they may not have been aware of. And these are healing alternatives that can change lives in a meaningful way, particularly when we're talking about treatment-resistant conditions. So that is that the standard of care hasn't served many people well, as we know, just from the people we know and touch in our lives, our work, our personal lives, but from the data as well, the statistics, that there's a very large treatment-resistant population there, and that's across multiple indications. So when you're offering truly innovative therapies and providing, in some cases, immediate accessibility, as we do in the case of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, you have certain situations where people for many, many years, in some cases decades, couldn't find relief, and with these alternative modalities are. So I'm glad you mentioned it. We're going to be doing more work around sharing some of those stories. I think it's a huge benefit, of course, to our company, and we want to know, for people to know at large how we help people. More importantly, I think in terms of sharing the stories, I think it provides a beacon for other people who may be suffering in a similar way or a similar indication, and until they see an example of alternative healing, they may not have the confidence or just the awareness to pursue other methods of healing. So in that respect, we're impacting a lot of lives, and I think that starts to have a greater impact as the company scales and the awareness of our offerings become more significant. If you consider that, we're as an industry, we're very, very excited about the expected or anticipated approval of MDMA in 2023, hopefully, and then psilocybin in 2025. These are still years out, obviously, and in terms of offering them at scale, it's something we're preparing to do. But we can't stay only focused on the future drugs, the future drug approvals.
Right.
We really need to innovate now in the case of people who need the help and make that innovation accessible. To be clear, that you can't just innovate and then not have the infrastructure that gives people access to that innovation. So when it comes to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, for example, today, our protocols, our experience doing that enables us to start new clinics, train practitioners, and start helping people at scale. And that's the model to continue with when the new drugs are approved. So it's a pretty big deal for us to be impacting lives now and to be setting the framework and a lot of the SOPs that'll help us do that with the other molecules, MDMA, psilocybin, et cetera, in the future.
What kind of third-party validation, because there are going to be new investors watching this, especially when they see the headlines, opening a 6th clinic and so on and so forth. What kind of third-party validation do you want to talk about, shareholders, with respect to the partnerships with Merck and Johnson & Johnson through Janssen? How important are those to you?
Sure, they're important to the business, and I'd highlight for people that Novamind runs 2 core businesses, one being our network of psychiatry clinics that I was just describing, and the second being a clinical research organization. So that clinical research organization, also known as contract research or a CRO, provides the services you just mentioned, some of our clients in the past, including Merck, including Johnson & Johnson or Janssen. More recently, we announced clinical trials that we will be serving as sites for, including Bionomics, which is a PTSD therapy, phase 2B. We just announced the other day a trial that we're leading site for Karuna. And Karuna is developing a drug, an antipsychotic drug focused on schizophrenia. So, the answer to your question is it's a very meaningful part of our business, because part of the reason that pipeline of clinical trial business keeps building is because we're growing our patient pool through our network of clinics. So there's a positive correlation there that with more clinics and more potential patients to serve in these trials, drug developers see more value and are more attracted, and can in fact we can provide them, with more sites. So in addition to the clinic expansion from 4 to 8, by the end of the year, we'll also have 3 research sites, going from 1 to 3. So the infrastructure serves not only the clinic, but co-located that research site as well. That infrastructure serves to grow that business. And again, I just mentioned Bionomics and Karuna. You'll be hearing more, and investors will see more of that pipeline. We'll be announcing that is clinical trials that we'll be serving as a site for.
Yeah, and that's impressive, because I know you kind of emphasize quantity there. Bigger companies like the amount of patients you're serving and the visits, but that also speaks to your quality as a company, right? Because it's not enough just to have a great turnstile. It also to me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I do want to ask. It also speaks volumes as to the confidence some of the biggest companies in the world have, in Novamind from the qualitative side.
It does, and it's a track record that we benefit from. I think many people doing their own research and analysis and trying to understand the various companies putting forward these models in psychedelic medicine now. It absolutely is a renaissance. I think there's no question anymore that it's going to fundamentally change the paradigm of mental health. In our case, we've been operating clinics since 2016. Our CMO, Reid Robison, was one of the lead researchers for the Spravato trials. That's a Janssen & Janssen product prior to the approval of Spravato. And he was also a coordinating investigator for the MAPS MDMA study. So this is a short list in addition to other things, but that thought leadership that we've had on mental health, broadly speaking, and psychedelic medicine in particular, has been well known for some time, and we're starting to see the evidence of the early efforts resulting in the scale that we're pursuing. So those early efforts, opening clinics in 2016, starting that small clinical research group, is now paying off, because there's very, very few people, both in the psychiatry side and the clinical research side, that have that breadth of experience And we've talked about it in terms of the number. We're probably in the closer to 10,000 ketamine-assisted psychotherapy treatments, for example, close to 3,000 plus Spravato treatments. So you really can't understate the experience gained from that work.
Are you, given the fact that you're kicking butt on both sides, on the therapy side, on the clinical research side, you guys are doing incredibly well. Have you now hit an inflection point as a business where now it's just a case of, it's no longer a question of if Novamind is going to be successful. Now it's only a case of, it's only a question of degree of success over the next 12 months, 36 months, 5 years?
I think so. I'd say that, I mentioned it before, the model works, right? So our model for psychiatry clinics and clinical research sites are in very high demand. They make a lot of money, and they allow us to help a lot of people in a way that balances both the growth of the business and, again, the highest standards of quality and care for mental health. So the model works. It's about scaling the model. That's what investors want to see from us. Our investors have been very clear in the past that they want to see us focusing on scaling that model, and in essence, creating an access point. That's what we are for this mental health revolution. Something that, again, can be clinics that people can visit today, financial results that can benefit from that performance, and not just things in the future, i.e. next generation drugs and next generation opportunities. So we're squarely focused on that, and it becomes about expanding into the US with that model. So we feel really comfortable with the business model we have, how it's performing, and the plan to scale it.
And that's the most important thing, because look, I've been in this business for 24 years now, and through that time I've seen the euphoria and the crash and the recoveries in .com, cannabis, blockchain, most recently even Bitcoin went to 20,000. Everybody and their mother wanted to buy Bitcoin, back down to 3,000, now up to 50,000. And we've seen psychedelics go through that in terms of the market, right? We saw a big rush in Q4 and Q1, that excitement phase. Now we're in that kind of retrenchment. And now I believe we're in that phase where investors are going to try to separate George.com psychedelics, which was just an idea and a bit of a paper play, versus the real players out there. What's your message to shareholders when talk about the market side of the company?
I'd say the psychedelic market broadly is underperformed. I think what you described again in the other sectors, whether you're looking at Bitcoin, cannabis, electric metals, anything in between, you do have a certain amount of hype and excitement on the front end, and then that retrenches and you have some consolidation. And I think that in that respect, broadly, people expected psychedelic stocks to do better earlier. We, of course, would have liked to see that as well with our stocks and others across the board. But in our case, I would agree with you that really it's about staying focused on the business plan, building the business, getting the financial results to speak for that success. At the end of the day, that's what investors are going to want to see. And really letting that market play out so that the real companies left standing, the ones that have fundamental businesses that are working, should be successful in the long term. So we've always taken that view. The business model hasn't changed much, and we'll continue to execute against that. I think in time, particularly when people keep seeing the data, that is the amount of people every quarter and every year going to our clinics, I think people will understand more and more that this is a systemic shift. That is, people's behaviors have changed, people's demand for these services have changed, and our response, being expanded accessibility to those services, is really fitting a market, giving them exactly what they want.
Yeah, and the other benefit of being around this business for 24 years as you're able to spot who the real companies are and who the pretenders are. And there are a lot of pretenders, right? There's George Com Psychedelics, guys who try and pretend that they're going to, evaluating opportunities in the psychedelic space. But with you guys, I said at the top, Q3 revenue, $1.85 million, up 43%. Your 20,000 clinic visits in 2020, forecasted 65,000, which is in 2021, which is 225% growth. You're opening your 6th clinic. That's the announcement today. Then we got Salt Lake City, looks like October, Parks in November. I think you guys are hitting out of the park, and I want to congratulate you and the entire team. We know it's not all you, but you are the CEO of the company. But I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say congratulations on the business execution side, and can't wait to have you back a lot more in 2021 as you open more clinics, and no doubt sounds like even more trials are going to be taking place.
Thanks, George. I appreciate it. We will keep executing and delivering, and I'll look forward to keeping you and your community updated.
For everybody home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast to Yaron Conforti, CEO, co-founder of Novamind, trades on the CSE under the stock symbol NM, in the US under the stock symbol NVMDF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under HN2. You've watched what he had to say. You've heard what he's had to say. We know what's going to happen in the psychedelics industry. Now your job is to do your due diligence. So 2 parts of that. First, get to Agoracom, get to the company's profile page, because we know psychedelics is new. There are a lot of elements of the psychedelics business. So you want to learn exactly about what Novamind is doing. We give you a great 1,000-foot view of that. But then from there, make sure you link over the Novamind website. Do your deep dive due diligence. Just don't say 12 months from now, we didn't tell you so. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.